What's going on, guys? MDLP from the Battle Axe, the Strongman Gym. See, I'm gonna get aggressive with that shit. I feel like I'm dancing. Strongman Gym Miami, where strength is everything. So, making the review about Stone of Steel. Let me start off by saying that, like almost everybody who started Strongman, Stones was my most favorite movement. Log is now my most favorite movement, but the stone was my best lift for a while. It's still one of my best lifts for a shorter guy. My best lift ever was 420 on a 52-inch bar at 240 pounds. That was my best lift that I remember. I'm only saying that because I've done stones a lot and I love stones, but I'm not necessarily biased. I'm just experienced with working with the traditional stones. I have no ties to anything, so if I offend somebody or whatever, man, legitimately sorry. I know this is a thing trying to start off, but I'm trying to make an honest review about what I think. And if you guys disagree or whatever, please, it's going to be open to discussion. I'd like to hear your opinions so I can tell you that you're wrong based on, I'm just kidding. So I try to make this this pro and con because I never script this shit, but I probably will forget. So let's start off with the pros that I thought were pretty good. Obviously, I know it's kind of silly if you're a person that maybe runs a cleaner operation or has to work out like in a LA Fitness or a gym that's like a classier gym. It's cleaner. You don't have to get tacky everywhere. You don't fuck everything up. You may not get kicked out. I know some guys don't have the luxury of having their own gym or a gym that can let them use their stones. It's a lot cleaner, and that's a big deal in that kind of aesthetic sense. It's easier. Standard. If you have 5 of these stones, or 2 or 3, you will know that these stones are exactly the same weight. If it's 200 and 200, typically in Strongman, a lot of times in shows, you might have a 200-pound stone and then a 200-pound stone that's like 250 or 240, or it's misloaded. Same thing with kegs. You know that this is typically going to be standard on both sides. So that's pretty fair as far as big stone, like big comps or whatever. And then biceps. So that's going to be the last one. Now, I'm going to leave that like the last one on both pros and cons because that's a big thing I think most of us are either kind of worried about or thinking about. And so I'll come back to that because I'm a time where there's actually a pro and definitely a con to the bicep. Con, there is no tacky, and that is a guy that the guys that work out in a traditional strongman gym or powerlifting gym, or really a gym full of like a really handsome Miami guy, like maybe the Battle Axe. I don't know if you're lucky, if you have that kind of standard with a dick, that you can use tacky. It makes the lift different, easier on the bicep, heavier the weight, and it's a traditional lift. I personally like using tacky when I go above about 250 on the stone, or 200, depending on how my bicep feels, and I just feel a little bit safer on the bicep, etc. Makes the stone for the competition, right? When you're training with the Stone of Steel, if you're training with 2, 3, 4 other guys, maybe just another person that is not at your level, it is a general pain in the dick to have to open it back up, take the spacers out, put the plates on, make sure the spacers are evened out. Remember, every spacer weighs a certain amount of weight. So if you're going to be off by 4 or 5 pounds or whatever, if that really bothers you, then you have to make sure what spacer, because every spacer has its own weight. So if I'm working out with maybe like a lighter guy, and he can't do a 250, 300 load, that's what she said, then we have to take it out, load the plate, go back up. It's not very user-friendly in that sense. If you're working out solo, this is probably a good idea for you, a good lift for you. You don't have to roll out 6, 7 stones. You roll out that one stone, you open it up, you put the plate in, just like you were loading a barbell. But as far as working with another person, it can really become tedious as far as opening it up. Easy to open up, very practical, very smart how to do it. I think it's fucking cool, but it does become a pain in the ass when you're working out with somebody. This is something I don't think a lot of guys have put thought into. Maybe you have. When you're loading the stone, the pick is the easiest part. You're going to look at all the videos on Instagram right now. Everyone can pick this fucking stone up like nothing, right? Any pick on the stone is typically very, very forearm intensive, right? That's why we'll wrap our forearms with the sleeves, tape, whatever, and I'll come back to that. So it sticks very good on your forearms. You chalk up your forearms with whatever you want, and the pick is not a problem. The steel typically sticks to your skin. Now, if you're doing reps out in the heat, I think this is going to be a legitimate issue. If you have this stone outside and you're in like a southern summer weather, I think after a few reps, the stone is going to be useless because it's going to slip out of everything. No matter how much you chalk up, you know how it is, guys who train in the heat. This stone will be useless when it's hot out. It's just going to fuck you up. But if you have a dry indoor area, the pick is no problem. I've seen general picks easy. Here's the hard part: the load. Typically, the load could be good or bad for other people, depending where you're at. Shorter guys tend to pick it easier and load it harder. Taller guys tend to have trouble picking it and then an easy load because of the height. Well, in this case, I think it's going to affect everybody. Because you don't go over like the kind of 10 and 2 o'clock you would use on a traditional stone, you have to go around it. Because your hands aren't tackied up, you can't go over because your hands will slip out when it becomes significant weight. If you guys are training this at sub-maximal, non-competitive weight, then most of the information I'm giving you doesn't make any sense because it's just really fun and cute. Anybody who's watching this who's probably going to use it, which is going to be at the Arnold's or a Plat Plus or a high-level show, the weights are going to be significant. And because you can't do this, you have to hug the stone around like we would grab a stone when we're not using tacking, which some competitions I've used in the past. This is what happens. If you're a shorter guy and you have to load the stone like this, you're fucked. There is no way around it. You cannot go high. This is why we use this technique to go much higher on our body. You're going to get stuck. So at a 54, 52-inch platform, it's really hard to generate hip thrust and depth when you have to grab the stone around. Also, because you're not wearing tacking, it's a little tougher to grip that steel with just chalky hands, as opposed to the tacky that's just stuck on there in the hand. So it goes from forearm to hands primarily, and it's really hard to grip that stone when it gets harder. Not that it's not doable. I worked with about 260 pounds. I loaded it a few times. It wasn't very difficult, but I know that when it becomes a 52, 54-inch load or height, I'm not a very tall guy. I'm about 5'10", which is about the average height of the 231 guys, but there's a lot of tall guys too, or people with long arms that can just fucking place it over the yoke. Well, fuck you guys, honestly. But a shorter guy is actually going to get pretty affected by this stone. So try to start learning techniques to try to drive out, maybe change up the grip positioning, because I think that's where it's going to be really affected. Also, sleeves. Hit or miss, honestly. If it's going to be for reps, I recommend you put on some sort of sleeve or tape, because no matter what, you're going to develop, it's still, like, I don't know if you can see it, but it leaves its mark. But after 3 or 4 reps, this part here gets eaten away by the steel, and it just becomes skin and it starts to slip. So yes, skin is always kind of the better choice. But if you have to use, I would probably use sleeves for anything on repetitions where you're going to develop a sweat no matter if you're indoors or what, and it'll start to slip off your forearms, which if you get even a little bit sweaty with this stone, it's really difficult. The sleeves actually ended up working out pretty good. I ended up chalking it up and using it. I actually chalked the sleeve up. And it actually, when they're really tight, it's pretty good. It actually helps out a lot. The hands are just, there's not much to it. You just hope for the best as far as that. Biceps. I have shitty biceps. I think anybody towards end game strongman, unless you've been very fortunate or you're really young, your biceps are taking a beating in this sport, and the idea of bicep tendonitis and bicep pain is across the board. Whether you're light or heavy, it just starts to get shitty. Here's where the pro and cons come. A lot of bicep tears do happen on stones, but it's because of the tacky. The tacky will stick your hand in this position so much so that you won't slip, and that's where the pop happens. It's almost like you're stuck on there and it's do or die. I think in this situation, when the stone becomes too heavy, before you can actually tear your bicep, your hand's just going to fly off because you can no longer hold this barbell. It's almost like a safety switch where you can go as heavy as you want, and I think it'll just slip off. What I think you're going to feel a lot is bicep strain and bicep pain. I think is definitely there. If you're not feeling it or haven't felt it, maybe you haven't gone heavy enough, or maybe you just have healthy biceps. I'm just saying my situation is I don't have the healthiest, especially my right bicep, and I felt it on every single pick, and every single load, the bicep was very evident. So it's a pro and con. You know, tacky typically has a history of helping blow out biceps because you cannot let go of that stone. In this situation, I think it'll just slip out. So general review. I think in the strongman community, whenever we get something really new, we lash out. We're like a bunch of alpha male children. I know we do. Just like when we had Zerchers in nationals, there was an across the board, fuck this, fuck that, I'm not doing this, and 85% of you motherfuckers showed up anyways. It's just what we do. We just kind of lash out at new things. It's in any community, So I think that the general backlash, a lot of us are like, well, if it ain't broke, why are you trying to fix it? You know, you're kind of reinventing the wheel. I'm on that level where I'm not really excited about this. I think that for what it's worth, using tacky and sticking to traditional stones, I think is kind of the safer route, believe it or not. And it's also just like a staple of the sport. It's like changing the log, you know. So on that aspect, I'm kind of biased. Now, as a performance, at a performance level, I don't think there's much value to change this thing. I think it helps. I think it's creative. But personally, I'm not really 100% behind it. I think that I don't know if it'll necessarily last. It might become part of it, but you'll never get rid of stones. And at high level shows, pro shows, heavyweight pro shows, you're not really going to see this because this sport is about how heavy you can lift something. And the heavier you make that stone, the more likely you are to hurt somebody, and the more likely that shit's not going to come off the ground because it's just not going to happen. Either the reps are going to be lighter stones with more reps, or it's not going to work out. It's really like saying, you know, try to deadlift a fucking Buick, the heavy one, and going, okay, no straps. Well, I get it. You could be able to lift it, but some weights are just not made to be lifted without straps. Or else in the Arnolds, on the frame carry for the pros on the big show, they would make you, okay, lift 1100 without straps. I promise you that maybe one or two guys would even budget. And then the rest are using straps because there's a reason you want to see big weights move. So I don't know if this is really going to work out on that aspect. Personally, I think I'd rather use stones, and I think that we're going to run into some problems as far as loading it and taking it out and doing that kind of stuff. But I suggest you try to listen to, obviously you have to try it because you have to learn how to, it's a different technique. It's a different feel. You can do it. I think that we're not going to be limited by weight. I think it's going to take a different learning curve. I think the shorter guy is getting fucked over. I think that it's a little bit more strain in the bicep, but at the same time, less likely to pop it. And that's it. So I hope this kind of helps. If you have any further questions, I know a lot of guys made videos or wrote out reviews. I'm going to put this on my Facebook or on my Instagram. Ask me there or email me because I'm sure a lot of us are curious or don't even have access to one. So there's certain things that you can train and certain things that you can do to kind of simulate that, which I'll be making another video to help you become better at that if you can. Okay? Thank you for tuning in. Cheers.